Direct and indirect costs. By the end of this short presentation, you should be able to define and identify examples of direct and indirect costs for a business. Okay, let's take a look at the definition of a direct cost. A direct cost are the costs that are directly linked to the making of a product or service. That is a technical definition that you should learn. So the costs that are directly linked to making the product or the service. Of course, what does that actually mean in English? So what we're looking at really is that these are the costs that an organisation would have to pay to actually make their product or their service. Now the best way to try and understand this is to try and take an example. And we're going to use the example of a cake shop. So what I'd like you to do is to find a piece of paper and get a pen, or do it on the computer if you want to, but pause the video while you think about all of the direct costs that a cake shop might have. So think about all of the costs that would actually have to go in to making the product, i.e. the cake that this shop is going to make. Pause the video now. Okay, hopefully you've got some of the items that I've got on my list here. So I have come up with some of the direct costs that a cake shop might have. So to make a cake, you might have flour, you might have eggs, you might have milk, you might have icing, you could have jam, you could have cream, or you could have other items that you may have used. Now notice that I've categorised these and I could have called them raw materials. Raw materials are an example of direct cost typically for most businesses. All I've done there is try to relate them to the actual business idea. That is a much better answer in any exam when you try and apply it and relate it to the business. Higher order skills that you're starting to show rather than just stating back some answer from knowledge. Of course, you could also have the cake stand or the plate that it goes on. You could have the packaging, i.e. the box that the cake goes in. And you could even have the electricity or the gas that's used to actually cook the cake, so using the oven. Now notice that's why I've placed that on there, because electricity heating the shop, for example, would not be a direct cost. That would be a general cost. Or gas to heat the shop, again, would be a general cost. But if it's used to actually make the product, so cooking of the cake, then that would be a direct cost. See how many of those you got. You may have more. If you have got more than a direct cost, great. Share them with me below in the video. Of course, on the other side, we then have something called indirect costs. Now, the way to learn this is dead simple. These are costs that are not directly linked to making the product or the service. The best way to understand this is to try and use our cake shop example again. Now, we're talking here about costs that the organisation has to pay, but they're not actually linked to the product or service. And in our cake shop, that's making of the cakes. So what I'd like you to do on that paper or wherever you've been doing it before, pause the video in a minute and then actually make a list of all the indirect costs that you think the cake shop would have. So these are costs that the shop will have to pay, but are not linked to making of the cakes. Pause the video now. Now, some of the answers that you may have come up with, these are only suggested ones, is you might have come up with rent, because the shop will have to pay its rent regardless if it makes cakes or not. It's telephone. Telephone's not going to be linked to the making of cakes. Broadband, again, won't be linked to the making of the cakes, but it might be for managing their website. Administration costs, so doing things such as paperwork, for example, sending out letters, they won't be linked to the making of the cake. The marketing costs are not going to be linked to making of the cake. You could even argue like the uniform, like the apron, for example, or the t-shirt that they wear in the shop. That's not linked to making of the cake. That is going to be an indirect cost. There are many more. Again, share them below in the video. I'm only doing a quick overview here to try and get you to think about what a direct cost is. Okay, so what should you now know? Well, by the end, at this point now, you should be able to define a term of direct and indirect cost. If you can't do that, go back, watch the video again to make sure you can. You should also be able to give examples of direct and indirect costs. Now, that comes with the proviso that I've mentioned below. You've actually got to make sure you understand what those terms mean so that you can relate those direct costs to the business example you were given. Bear in mind that not every business will have the same indirect costs. They may vary depending on what the business organisation does. However, if you can do that, fantastic. You now have a great understanding of direct and indirect costs. Thanks for checking out the BeeBusinessBee YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the subscribe button down below to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. It's @BeeBusinessBee. Also, give the Facebook page a like. It's facebook.com/BeeBusinessBee. And lastly, don't forget to check out the online hive of activities found on BeeBusinessBee.co.uk, full of quizzes, activities and resources. And remember, until next time, keep buzzing.